In the heart of the state-of-the-art, at the dawn of the next stage in entertainment, you found no proscenium.
You have indeed found No Proscenium, the voice of everything immersive. I'm your host, Noah Nelson. This week, we've got a big show for you, an international show at that. We kick things off with a talk with Joep van Gorp, founder of immersive art destination Doloris in Tilburg in the Netherlands. That's just outside of Amsterdam. We talked to him about their meta maze. We also have Evan Neiden of Candle House Collective, who are having an epic run of festival appearances this month. We'll get into the details during the segment. And we're joined by Todd Martens, game critic for the LA Times, for a very playful and nerdy conversation about haunts, Avengers Campus, and the week's big VR hardware news. But first, Catherine Yu is on vacation, so you're stuck with me for headlines. And it's been a week. All right, let's get into it. Arkham Asylum has been revealed. Tickets are on sale on October 28th for a fully immersive take on the infamous asylum where Batman's villains are detained. This is going to be in London, and it opens up in next autumn. Arkham is also the setting of some of the most famous Batman stories, including the Arkham Asylum video game and the Grant Morrison, Dave McKean graphic novel from the 1980s that was part of the wave of comics that reinvented the superhero genre and Batman specifically, along with Frank Miller's Dark Knight and, of course, Alan Moore's Killing Joke and Watchmen. So, fertile ground for an immersive installation, to be sure. The doors to the asylum are opening next fall, and we'll have more on the event in a future episode of No Pro. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. All right, Secret Cinema. Let's talk about Secret Cinema. Speaking of London, Secret Cinema is best known for their large-scale immersive events that culminate in film screenings, such as the recreation of Hill Valley for the Back to the Future screening they did, and the famed nightclub for Moulin Rouge. They are bringing their brand of immersive magic to bear on League of Legends, the massively popular MOBA, that's a massive online battle arena game, from Riot Games. But specifically, the League of Legends series, Arcane, that is about to debut on Netflix. And they're not in London this time, they're in Los Angeles. Tickets are on sale now for Arcane Enter the Undercity, and that event starts on November 21st. Secret Cinema has finally landed in LA. We are ecstatic. And you can hear us talk about it in this week's Review Crew show, which is just one click back in the podcast feed. On to VR news. HTC announced their new immersive glasses, the VIVE Flow, this week with a reveal on Thursday. The new device is being marketed primarily as a wellness device, but represents a significant shift in form factor for VR devices. Will HTC open up a new market? We'll have more in our talk with Todd Martens later in the hour. And not to be outdone, Magic Leap is back making headlines, announcing a redesigned Magic Leap 2 device and a new $500 million in investment. The company is currently focused on the business uses of AR, putting them into the same market as Microsoft's HoloLens and that company's Mesh initiative. We may see more device reveals later this month with Facebook Connect on October 28th. And finally, a little plug for us. You might know it. We've got this event called The Next Stage coming up, and this week we announced that Walt Disney Imagineering is going to have a roundtable from prototype to reality. That is part of the summit. We've also announced that we are indeed doing the mini festival as part of The Next Stage, and we're able to reveal that Scout Expedition Company's The Nest is going to be one of the options in the festival. Public badge sales are now live, and you can request an access code. Let me tell you, It's going to be an absolutely incredible lineup with folks from the Royal Shakespeare Company, with folks from Department Studios who are behind Arkham Asylum, which we just talked about, and all kinds of other surprises in store. More programming announcements in the weeks to come. I hope to see you in Pasadena this January. And that has been our headlines. Hey, got to do that part too. Joining us now is Joep van Gorp, the founder of Doloris, which is a art installation and bar in Tilburg, which is about an hour outside of Amsterdam. Dolores has what they call a meta maze. We're going to get into that in a second. Joep, thank you for joining us on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's just get right to the question I have, and I think everyone listening would have, is what is Dolores and what is a meta maze? It's such a great term too. I want to congratulate you guys on the term meta maze. So what is Dolores and what is a meta maze?
Yeah, so Dolores is, we started it as a creative complex, which houses two major parts. You already said it in your introduction. So we have a maze, an art installation, and we also have a rooftop bar. So we have two different segments. The rooftop bar is also a restaurant and a place where you can have a nice drink or cocktail in the sun. But the main part that drives our organization, that's Dolores' Meta Maze. And the Meta Maze is currently what we know is still unique in the world. So if you want to see something like us, you actually cannot only go to us. If you make it really flat, then it's a bit comparable to like a children playground with all the nets on the side. I'm sure you know you have been there once when you were young.
Oh yeah.
We fully themed it, and over 70 artists worked on the installation. So it's only for grown-ups. We're allowing people from 12 years old. And it's actually a trip into your inner self. That's our product.
You have this really great trailer video for it, and we'll try to remember to link it in the show notes. It suggests a story, so I'm wondering, how narrative heavy is this experience? Is it a linear journey you're going on? What's the flow here? Because the first thing that pops into mind for me when I hear about this is I think about the now three Meow Wolf facilities here in the United States, which are these kind of big art playgrounds. And this sounds similar, but the video sort of suggests that there's a pathway journey here. Did I pick up on the right thing, or is this a lot more open?
No, it's really an open world experience. But Meow Wolf is actually, if you look to comparable projects, and I'm sure if somebody's listening to this podcast, they will know Meow Wolf. So Meow Wolf, the big difference between us and Meow Wolf is that we don't allow people to go in together. So you always go in individual. And also, you can't bring your phone or your watch or camera or whatever. So everything that happens inside is a secret. And the only way to show it to other people is to talk about it. And that's a really strong, and I think the most possible way the best possible way to immerse visitors 100%. Because when you go in together, for example, into Meow Wolf, we visited and we really loved the installation. I think it's great what they're doing. But the thing that we try to do is to really give visitors their inner experience. And the only way to do that is to experience it only by yourself. And that's a really strong mechanism.
So you go in alone, but you have the ability to kind of go where you want to go. So is it possible to kind of cross paths with the other people you've shown up with because they're let in like a few minutes later?
Yeah, so that's possible. But what we try to do also when we guide people into the maze, we try to separate them a little bit. So that you're not the directly the next one is your best friend or who joins your experience. You see it a lot. Some people do meet each other in the maze and continue their journey together. But the beginning of the experience is such an important moment to, if you experience that alone, a lot of people also choose because of that to continue their journey on their own. Also, if they see their friends, but to start an experience, get into the unknown, get into the rabbit hole all by yourself. Yeah, that's a really strong experience.
That's fascinating. Like I love that you guys have made that like really clear choice to like send people in, you know, by themselves. And that point you just made about, you know, people go in by themselves and then maybe they run into their friends, but then decide to stay solo because they've already been given that experience, and so they want to hold on to it. That is really, really interesting to me.
If you look into the trailer, what you asked if there is a narrative also, actually the only narrative that we that we share with people without really telling it, but what you see inside the trailer and what we also try to hand over to the guests when they go into the maze is that they are the chosen one, and you can only be the chosen one if you're the only one, and that's actually our narrative. So find your inner self. You're the chosen one. You're now ready to go in.
So is this a pop-up run, or are you here for the long haul with the meta maze?
No, we're here for the long run. Yeah.
What's the long-term plan here?
The long-term plan is actually pretty simple. I'm already working on new Dolores, so we're planning to open a new location. Currently, we don't have the location site yet, but we're talking with a few. I hope this month, but maybe I think in the media hour later you will get a sign that we are moving on with it. But we're actually working already for that like a year or something like that to create a new installation somewhere. And our plan is to build every year a new one from on 2023.
So what was the primary inspiration to create this?
It's actually a personal experience. So I went with two friends to Berlin like a long time ago. I think already 11 years ago. And I was. If you go to Berlin, it's a really eclectical city. So when you walk around the corner, you can experience a complete new area in the city, but also in clubs and also in a restaurant. Or so there was really a feeling that really hit me. It was like in a positive way. And then by the end of the trip, we visited the maze in Berlin, which was there. And it was created, and the start was actually coming. It was impossible, I think, to create this kind of experience if the Berlin Wall wasn't fallen. So there was a lot of empty buildings in that area. The artists got their way of working free and do their thing, and eventually that evolved into in Paris del Singum. There was of Kamanoya in Berlin. I visited that installation without knowing what to expect, and then it hit me so hard, and I was so full of inspiration that I was really thinking, okay, this should be possible on more places in the world.
What role do you think this kind of large-scale experiential art plays in people's lives?
I think more and more people are looking for something else than their regular life. They want to get inspired. So we're living more and more in a digital world. The cities we're living in are also all everywhere in the world looking more the same. So if you look into to the restaurants, all the new hip bars say, it's like the world is really connecting, and I think that's a really positive thing. But one of the elements that's also changing that is that the world is more looking the same. So we're also getting less surprised, and I think people are looking for that surprise. They wanna experience something and have a moment that their eyes open, and they got a small tintling on their skin, just to that they experience something that's really nice and that's beautiful and created with love. And I think people are more and more looking for that. And the element that we also add to that is that we really have because we have a device-free experience, the no watches, no cameras, and no phones. It's really a place where you can slow down time and be with yourself and enjoy the moment. And I think that's a really powerful thing that a lot of people are missing now in their lives. Also, when I look to my life, then there's always a screen nearby, and the habit to always get to the screen is really sometimes also really annoying. So and just to have a walk in the park or do stuff like that, I think that's nice, and that creates a lot of chillness into your life. But also sometimes you want to be tickled and experience something new. And I think to experience something new, those are actually the art and entertainment experiences that are now popping up in the immersive entertaining world. But I'm curious where it will lead to. Of course, I have some ideas, and the Star Wars hotel that's coming up. That's also really an idea that I was already thinking of to organize something like that years ago. So I'm really happy Disney is now pulling it off, and starting in March, I think they will open next year. But
that's right.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to what the boundary will be, that people will be able to. I think that's the limit, to pay for the experience, because how better and how cooler the experience and how longer it will take, how more costly it will get. So yeah, I'm really curious what that sign will do. But what I also think is that cities are more and more looking like theme parks, actually. So they also looking for attractions, and then immersive experiences are a really cool way to have like a totally different experience than the city in a short time.
Just one more question, and then I'll let you go. But so does that mean, as you look to make more meta mazes, that when you pop up another one, it'll sort of be unique to that city? Is that sort of your plan there?
Yeah, for sure. So also how we see it is that the same as Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, we have Dolores, the meta maze, and the next one will be Dolores, and then we give it a new name. So that's really the way we think. So every maze that we will build will be a new one. Maybe it's possible that we also build like copies of experiences, but then on the other side of the world. Maybe that's an option. We will investigate that, but we are not there yet now. So first step is build the second installation, and we're really looking forward to show it to the crowd. It's actually already fully designed, so we know how it will look like and all the elements that we will put in. But we're waiting for the location, and then we can start.
All right. Well, Joep, thank you so much for joining me on the show today, and hopefully at some point I will be able to get out of the States and come check out a Dolores somewhere in the world.
Yeah, you're more than welcome, and I hope I can get into the States also pretty soon.
That's coming together. We've reached that part of the show where we like to talk to our friends from around the immersiverse, both at home and abroad. This week, our friend Todd Martens, the game critic for the Los Angeles Times and a explorer of the immersive realms, is with us. Todd, thank you for joining us on the show this week.
Thank you for having me.
You've been busy. You just had an article about the LA haunt scene come out in the LA Times this week. And kind of, I guess I should say on behalf of the community, thank you for that. It's always nice to have a spotlight on this work in the mainstream press.
Well, no, yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. I hope I didn't embarrass myself. Yeah, no, I always define play as, like you say game critic, I define game critic as like play. So it's like anything where we're role playing or like being more active in our entertainment, to me is play. So immersive theater, I think, to me, I define it as the act of play.
Do you think this year's crop of what you got to check out with Delusion and Creep is a pretty good exemplar of how LA rocks it? Like there was a great sort of note in the piece about just sort of LA's relationship to this work versus, say, New York's.
Yeah, I mean, I think as, you know this world obviously much better than I do, but I think, as someone who's a fan of it and, does dip in and write about it now and again, it's during September, October is sort of like when, at least when it comes to large scale sort of events, that aren't sort of, limited run and sort of, offbeat sort of locations. It's when LA really sort of starts to like come alive with sort of these sort of, so-called immersive shows. And I thought, one of the reasons did the story this time, as opposed to sort of in years past when I've passed up on writing about, Delusion or Creep, it's just sort of, obviously last year, everything was curtailed or done in sort of different ways because of the pandemic. So this was sort of like a return. And I thought both of these returns were done in, they were definitely spectacles, I thought, and I had a fine time at both, and I thought both of them pulled from the gaming world in different ways, and I thought both of them did a good job of, not loading you too heavy on plot in the beginning, and I was through Creep with and their show is, as you know, it's in a bar in Hollywood that they've transformed into a town. One of the people in my group had never seen an immersive show before, and he thought this was just a regular haunted house that he was talked into by his friends to go to. And and the first like 30 minutes when you're just sort of in a bar and you could interact with cast or not interact with cast, he was just like, I'm going to have the worst time of my life. What am I doing? He thought it was going to be a sort of DIY version of like a Halloween horror maze at Universal or something, I think. But he ended up having an amazing time. And even though he didn't interact with the cast as much as, someone like I did, I thought they did a good job of sort of telling the narrative through the environment and hitting the large points of the narrative that if you were pretty new to this world, you weren't sort of like confused or lost or uncomfortable as to why somebody is suddenly grabbing your arm and whispering in your ear.
So the indie immersive stuff is not the only thing you've been checking out this spooky season. Before we started recording, you mentioned something very not independent that you think is doing a good job and kind of touches up on the immersive realm.
Yes. I mean, I've been to Universal Studios and I've been to Disneyland's Halloween events. And I think the highlight for me is that this is the second time Disneyland has done this in Disney California Adventure as part of their Oogie Boogie Bash. They have their version of a sort of haunt trail called Villain's Grove. And I think it's like one of my favorite things, Imagineering and Parks Entertainment has done in recent years. It's not scary, obviously it's a Disney event, but it's this really sort of mystical, magical sort of walk-through maze sort of. So the area in Disney California Adventure where this maze is in the Grizzly Peak area of the park. And it's in an area that's normally an activity playground area for children.
The Brother Bear rope maze thing.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
Brother Bear. Sorry, I just have to do it. I'm contractually obligated to say it that way.
No, I enjoy it. So it's set up in that area where you walk around and they transform it with all its projections and music And what it is, it's sort of like you're entering sort of like what would be, it's not quite the home of the villains, but sort of like where the villains would maybe like get together and hang out and have secret meetings. But
They're
it's like
lairs. Yeah, kind of like if the Legion of Doom, but for Disney
exactly.
characters, right? Yeah, I get it. I dig.
So they've got like this really lovely like Alice in Wonderland area, and like you don't necessarily see the Cheshire Cat, but you'll see like the cat materialize on the trees. And when you go into the Snow White area, you'll see the forest, you know, taken over by lightning and thunder, and you'll see reflections of, you know, the evil queen against the backdrops. And it's just sort of like, it's a little understated, and you know, it's shows that Disney could sort of do like a walkthrough sort of experience. It made me really excited for what is happening in Epcot with the Moana water walkthrough that they're building. So just sort of this idea of immersing yourself in a world as a walkthrough experience. Obviously they don't do, oh, sorry.
The Moana, so there's gonna be a water walkthrough with Moana. So is it like projection mapping? So it's like world of color, dancing waters, but you can walk through it. Like, are we gonna be able to basically walk through the wonderful world of color?
I think, well, it's going to run day and night, and it's going to be open all hours. So I don't think it's going to be heavy on projections. I think it's going to be heavy on like fountains, and heavy on, you know, heavy on sort of, you know, colored water, I guess. So I think it's going to be, but it's going to, and it is an Epcot, so it's going to have a little bit of a edutainment sort of feel, or at least I hope.
You got to learn about these brands somehow, Todd. How else are children going to learn about brands? It's not YouTube. They're learning other things on YouTube.
So yeah, no, but it's, you know, they don't do this kind of stuff often because obviously it's low capacity. But it was just, you know, another sort of toolkit that it just, I don't know, it just made me really excited for different types of experiences in these parks beyond, you know, just the rides or the IP overlays of things.
Speaking of IP overlays, no, kidding. That's a rough segue. I'm going to keep it just to show what kind of jerk I am, but
it's not inaccurate.
Yeah. So there's been, you know, out with A Bug's Life, in with Avengers Campus, which you've gotten a chance to go to. I have not gotten a chance to go to yet. So I'm very, because I know where like our tastes overlap. So I'm really curious, like what your vibe is for this gathering point, this multiversal gathering point for the Earth's mightiest heroes.
Yes, so I've gotten a chance to go to it now a number of times. I've been back to the park quite a bit, and yeah, I feel like Avengers Campus is sometimes graded on a curve. You know, and instead of what it is and what it sets out to do, and does it do those things well. It is, you know, just as the title says, a campus. There's an Avengers headquarters where the Avengers all sort of hang out in this land. It's not a Galaxy's Edge type place. It's not a place where you're going to go and get lost mid-story. It's not, there is no connection with, you know, the Disney Play app. There's no sort of sense, there's no sort of underlying game to the land. It's just sort of you go, and it's almost like a Disneyland sort of, it felt very much like one of the big influences for this land was like a Comic-Con type experience where it's like you can just go and hang out with characters and meet characters, and maybe see characters. That there is a stunt show that is well done, and there is a spider.
Lucky. They got a stunt show. We didn't get a stunt show. I'm sorry. I don't self-identify with a certain franchise at all.
I think that's where the stunt show went.
That's fantastic. How smart of them.
It's a well done stunt show. The land is clearly designed as a place to like hang out. It doesn't look like any other land at Disneyland. It looks like a place that could be in downtown Orange. You know, it's like bricks.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Is that a feature? Or is that a robot bug? I don't know. I was born there. I don't see. Sorry, it's hard for me to.
Um, there's a nice little sort of couple brick streets in that area, so that's what I was
Okay,
thinking of.
it's like the little antiquing section
A
of
little
it,
old town
like
area.
downtown, right? Is
Yeah,
there Polly's Pies nearby? Like,
a
then I'm
little.
gonna be into it. Actually, how is the food? I gotta admit, how is the food? Have you tried like the Hank Pym various sized food items?
It's as far as theme park food goes, it's not bad. If you're in Disney California Adventure, I'd still go for Lamplight Lounge over in Pixar Pier or the Carthay Lounge.
Mm.
There's nothing in Avengers Campus that is as good as the Ronto wrap. Even though they do have oversized and shrunken food.
That disappoints me. I love a Ronto wrap. I was very excited to eat virtual ones, particularly because I thought I was going to go eat a real one soon, and then that didn't get to happen. And then I love the Carthay Circle. Like I've had birthday dinners at the Carthay Circle. Like I'm not the exact same type of nerd you are, but we are pretty close. That makes me so it's just like, oh, here's a giant pretzel, like, oh, here's a tiny burger. Like is that that's the whole thing?
It's basically there's like a chicken fried steak that is.
Did you have the shawarma?
I've had most everything but the shawarma.
Okay.
So I haven't had the shawarma, and I just haven't had the shawarma because everybody who's had the shawarma tells me just to eat the Ronto wrap.
But then maybe it's the Ronto wrap. Maybe the shawarma is just the Ronto wrap in a different form, and then maybe we can just convince Marvel fans that Ronto wraps are cool because it's just the shawarma from Avengers. See, I'm getting strategic here.
I like the way you're thinking, but yeah, it's generally like a chicken fried steak. It's pressed so it's bigger, and then it's put in sort of slider buns so it looks smaller. I did share the giant pretzel with a friend of mine a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to say, like, the pretzel was good. It needs like some fancy mustard. If you're going to do like a giant pretzel, you need like some fancy cheese, some fancy mustard. It doesn't have that.
Oh, it doesn't have beer cheese?
No, it's just got the regular old theme park cheese.
You gotta have beer. Hey, Imagineering, tell Food and Bev that they need some beer cheese.
You need some pub cheese.
Yeah, you need some pub cheese. Yeah, you don't have to call it beer cheese. I mean, we know what it is, but you need it. You can't convince Middle America. I mean, look, if you can get better at Applebee's, there's a problem.
Well, no, and you could get the same cheese at any other pretzel stand in the park. So the one that's in the pub theme to Ant-Man and Wasp should have something a little different.
Yeah, honey, right? Because it's bug theme or something. Honey mustard. I don't know. Like, get creative. All right. Well, clearly it's lunchtime, but so it sounds like it's all right there.
Yeah,
like it's a nice addition. It's a nice update, but
Yeah, I guess in closing, I would say, like, when I mentioned the Downtown Orange reference, I mentioned it as like it's clearly designed as a place when Disneyland had annual pass holders. Like, it's a place that you would go and hang out, on a Friday night and have a fancy drink, go on the Spider-Man interactive ride, which is designed so you can buy toys and ride it multiple times to get different scores. So it was designed clearly as like a locals hangout sort of place. And as
which is no longer the plan, right? So
it's a little difficult at the moment with the reservation system, but as that kind of design for a land, I think it succeeds. If you're expecting a Galaxy's Edge or a New Orleans Square or a Cars Land, it is not that. But you can draw your own conclusions, I guess.
Yeah, that is interesting that it's like feels like something that was smartly constructed for an era that no longer exists. That was literally just like 2 years ago.
Correct. And, I think they were looking at, I think from a strategic perspective, here's our biggest global brand. So let's turn it into, if we're not going to build something that rivals Galaxy's Edge in terms of scope and artistry, let's build something that is, a place that you would go to, that encourages repeat visits and would be a place that's sort of a hangout, sort of downtowny type place in the park. So I think if you're a day guest, you can go in there and, if you catch a show, you're lucky. If you don't catch a show, you can kind of feel like maybe there's not enough to do.
All right. Well, there's one more thing I want to talk about, and it's something you got a chance to catch that was when this is airing, just was announced yesterday. So, and it's a tech thing. So, hit us up with that.
Yes. So I got a preview of a new HTC Vive headset. So they're not calling it a virtual reality headset. They're calling it immersive glasses, is what they've dubbed the term.
Take a drink, everybody. So we're getting wasted tonight.
Immersive glasses, and it's called the VIVE Flow. So I got a hands-on experience with it. I don't have a review set, so I haven't sort of put it through its paces. So I could just sort of talk about initial impressions. It's essentially just like a large pair of glasses. It's very simple to take on and off. It's very light. I think their press release describes it as the same weight as a chocolate bar, which is 189 grams.
Wow.
So it just slides on and off. That's what's so nice about it is I will say it is very comfortable. I'm going to say this, the bad news and the catch, there's always a catch, is it is designed for Android devices. It is designed to work with a mobile phone. It will mirror your mobile phone, and the mobile phone does the heavy lifting here, the smartphone. And so the smartphone is where the apps are going to live. And if you don't have an Android phone, you're a little bit out of luck because you're probably not going to spend $500 on these glasses and then buy an Android phone just for the glasses.
Right.
Which on the flip side, though, I do think it does have some exciting. I do think it is sort of an exciting product. Whether or not it catches on, I do think it's sort of a step in the right direction. It is not a gaming device. It is not, it's not a Quest 2. You're not going to do heavy gaming on this sort of thing. And they're not selling it as that. They're selling it as sort of a health and wellness device. So you would do like meditative apps. They're selling it as sort of like brain exercises, things you could put on for 5 or 10 minutes. And you don't have to be fully, one thing when you're using a VR headset, as we all know, it's like you put it on, you take it off, and sometimes I won't go, if there's a VR app that I want to, or a game I want to play, I just won't even bother because I don't want to put the thing on. And this is very easy. It's really a pair of glasses.
Wow.
It's very simple. And so I think that
but it's shooting you like VR style environments, but just in the glasses.
Yes.
Form factor. So like full occlusion.
Full inclusion.
Occlusion. Full occlusion.
So like full occlusion. Yes.
Yeah. You're not seeing when you put the glasses on and like you see the world inside the glasses, not the outside world.
Yeah. So I mean, for the tech people, it's got I'm looking at it. It's got a 75 HD refresh rate, 3.2K resolution. But it's, and it's got a nice audio sound. I did a couple meditative apps in my limited time with it. And I did one simple game where currently you'll be using the phone as a controller. There will be add-on devices that will motion track your hands via Bluetooth. But those will connect to the phone, which will then beam the information to the headset. So I feel like they're not selling it to the heavy VR user. I think it's a device as sort of, they're selling it for somebody who's interested in tech, but maybe hasn't dipped into this world yet. And I think it's the kind of thing, as someone who writes about VR now and again, I've always sort of said, for VR to be as big as the people who love it want it to be, it's got to be as simple as a pair of glasses. And this gets us a step closer in that direction. And the quality is great. It's not something where you put those old headsets where you put the phone in the glasses. These are really nice glasses.
Oh, wow. So a step above the old Samsung Gear VR type setups. And would you say like it looks, does it feel like you're looking through like an Oculus Quest or something, but without like all the weight? Like, is that how the image quality looks? And you turn your head around and it's the same kind of like, oh yeah, I'm these glasses let me see this alternate world, which is all around me.
Yeah. So I did the wellness sort of app, Trip. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Oh yeah. Trips on Quest.
Trips on Quest. Yeah.
Nania Reeves, I believe, is the creator of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That sounds right. I'm saying yes. So, I'm hoping you're correct, but that sounds right.
I may have butchered the pronunciation of her first name, but I know her.
Yes, that
I
is
know
correct.
Who it is. Yeah.
That is correct. But no, I would say for an app like that, I came home and did it on my Quest when I got home, and the quality was pretty much. I didn't have them side by side, so it was a couple hours removed from doing it on the Flow versus doing it on the Quest, but the quality was about the same as far as like my memory could serve. But that's not like a heavy lifting sort of, Galaxy's Edge type app. It's a little bit more of a mindfulness sort of app. But for something like that, I couldn't tell a difference between the Quest.
Fascinating. Yeah, I mean, this has become a really interesting week in this cut, because I guess we had, the day we're recording this, we had the current CEO of Magic Leap like announce their second device, which they're aiming at, B2B. And then literally like an hour later, like, Boz just tweeted out like a picture of him wearing something more lightweight. And it's like, really, y'all? Like, ooh, don't worry, we're doing stuff. It's like, guys, don't be thirsty like that. And everyone of course is waiting on Apple to do something, and they announced an event on Monday, but it's just going to be new Macs. Like, I got very excited for 5 seconds and then like quickly looked up the Mac places, like, oh yeah, they're just going to announce new Macintoshes. I'm like, whatever, I can't afford a new MacBook. It might come in black now. It's like, oh good, something I want that I can't afford for fashion purposes.
Exactly.
Yeah, still waiting on Apple to get in the game. But sometimes when I look at this stuff and I see where that the technology seems to have maybe taken a big step forward, that's exciting, that there's this new form factor. And if you can get, if you can get that glasses form factor into, and there's no external trackers, like they're using the sensors on the device to do the head tracking and all that stuff. That sounds like a not insignificant technical advancement.
There's I'm not a tech reporter, so I don't want to say something and get something wrong. But even on their press materials, it doesn't go heavy into the tech. But I think it's so light. I don't think that. I think they tried to go as small as possible with as high a quality as they could, and they realized from talking to them at the event they realized this wasn't going to appeal to like a quote unquote gamer. They're going to go for one of the other Vive headsets or one of the Quests or one of the Oculus headsets. So they're trying to, I think, tap into a consumer that hasn't yet bought into VR. And perhaps that's why they're not using the word VR in any of their sort of, in most of their phrasing. Yeah. Just calling it immersive sort of glasses. Although, it will run a number of their VR apps, but they're really going after sort of the mindfulness sort of field. I imagine they'll go after a B2B sort of community as well, but I could definitely see a lot of applications for that. It does have 2 front-facing cameras, so you can easily switch to a camera view of the world, inside the headset like you can on the Quest. But there's really no reason to, because you can just flip it up. Yeah. So
we're it's getting interesting again. Well, Todd, we've eaten up a bunch of your day, so but I want to thank you so much for swinging by the virtual podcast studio and sharing your latest adventures with us.
Yeah, no, I'm grateful to be here and happy to do this as often or as often or as not often. I'm looking for a word that I can't find as needed.
It's okay. You're always welcome, and we've definitely we'll have you back before the year's through. I can guarantee that. So
sounds good.
Now we'd like to take a moment to thank the latest backers of No Proscenium. They are Venetia Harpin and Noah Nethery, and we want to introduce our latest sustaining backer, a longtime backer who has bumped up their pledge into that level. That is Jerome Joseph Gentes. Thank you so much. And God knows, I hope I didn't butcher your name just there. Jerome, we are due for a talk for certain. Here's the thing. We are functionally a charity. and we live on your largesse. We want to get to 67 new backers to hit our number of 400 backers for No Proscenium by the end of 2021. We ask for just $2 or $5 a month. The more we spread it out, the better. Patreon.com/No Proscenium is how to help us out. Remember, it's not just the podcast, it's the website. It's everything immersive, both that website and the Facebook group. All that we do, my life for you in that form. Patreon.com/No Proscenium. We really do need the help. Thanks.
Hi, this is Laura Hess. I'm the arts editor of No Proscenium, and each week we publish our review rundown and gather the review crew for a podcast where we check in with what everyone is buzzing about. But it's here, and only here, where we reveal the pick of the week. The pick of the week this week is brought to us by...
Hey everyone, it's Patrick McLean, the Chicago curator.
And Patrick, what is this week's pick of the week?
It is Dr. Crumb's School for Disobedient Pets. This is from Adventure Lab. It is a VR experience. It is $75 a session, and each session can handle up to 2 to 8 players.
And so what makes this a pick of the week?
What makes it the pick of the week is that it is just downright wacky, zany, and easygoing fun. Essentially, you and up to 7 other players are tasked with infiltrating the evil Dr. Crumb's school to stop the doomsday weapon that he's created from going off. But conveniently, Dr. Crumb has all sorts of obstacles and puzzles in the way that prevent you from ultimately just strolling in and stopping the doomsday machine. So you essentially are working as a team collaboratively to solve a bunch of escape room like puzzles. And what I think is great is twofold. One is that this makes the most of the VR format. I think there are really cool environments. There's great ways to interact with the environment, but also with other players. You are always moving around. It is definitely engaging and fun. The other thing that really makes this experience is the performances. So while you are engaging with a whole cast of characters during this hour-long experience, it's actually only one performer who is doing all of those roles. And they are constantly funny and engaging, and they are giving memorable experiences left and right that you're going to be left thinking about long after you complete Dr. Crumb's. I honestly had a really delightful time where we talked about this a little bit on the Review Crew podcast, but this is an experience where even if I had failed that all the other players, we didn't solve our puzzles and obstacles, just the fact of going through the motions and engaging with this performer made all the difference to me. It was just truly a delightful time and something really cool. And I think really makes the most of VR, that it doesn't require a first-person shooter experience to have fun, that this is something you can do with other people, and it is collaborative, engaging, and requires a whole bunch of teamwork and communication to successfully make it through to the end.
And Patrick, one quick key question. Which critter were you in this experience?
I, being true to form, was a cat.
Okay, there you have it. Don't forget you can find the review rundown at noproscenium.com, and this week's Review Crew podcast just one spot back in your podcast feed.
Joining us now is Evan Neiden, creator of Candle House Collective. Candle House, which is fairly familiar to a lot of No Proscenium listeners. It's a favorite of us here at No Pro. Are in the middle of a very heavy festival season with their piece Next Time, currently at 5 Rs. Claus is going to be at Indiecade, which is coming up, and Each and Every will be at the Denver Film Festival this November, along with quite a few other No Pro favorites, as I'm being reminded by all the releases that are going out today from Landon. Evan, thank you so much for taking time to be on the show this week.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, you're busy.
A bit.
How do these come together? What's and each of these are so different. You've got 5 Rs, which is the augmented and virtual reality storytelling. You've got Indiecade, which is the Festival of Independent Games, and you have the Denver Film Festival, which is, like it says on the tin, the Denver Film Festival. 3 radically different gatherings in some way, sort of bound together by their collective love of all this weird stuff. But how did these all come about?
I think, like you said, these festivals are kind of embracing the weird stuff, and we very much consider ourselves among weird stuff. So we're kind of learning as these festivals goes on. We've created at this point 25 of these telephonic or remote pieces. We've been Candle House has been creating since 2018, and I think now we're learning that just because the form is the same doesn't mean that it doesn't, that there isn't room for a massive amount of diversity inside of it, and variety inside of it. A lot of our sort of mainstay shorter pieces might be phone based, but Claus has attracted a sizable gaming audience in the way that our other pieces haven't, because it sort of has this unique. It's a thriller with a fair amount of moments of agency and a very clear objective, and it's one of the clearest concepts to put on a tin. There's a kid named Danny with a monster in his closet, and he's calling you for help. Like what to do with it. And so that's attracted a gaming audience, whereas a piece like Each and Every, which is somewhere between a autobiography documentary kind of thing and a nod to neo-futurism, gets a really sizable experimental film audience. And the Next Time is somewhere in the middle. It's a comedy. It's a huge love letter to Douglas Adams and Beetlejuice and things like that. And that audience is probably our most varied. I think Next Time bridges the gap between film fans, theater fans, and game fans. But the nice thing about doing these festivals is that we've had people come to see the pieces, a piece through the festival that was most appropriate to them. And this whole other realm of art and entertainment is open up to them, not just us, but, immersive theater in general. And they segue from video games into immersive theater, or from film into immersive theater, for the people who weren't already fans of this kind of participatory work. And it's just, I think accessibility has a lot to do with that. It's anybody with a cell phone, good reception, in a place they can be alone can do one of these 3 pieces we have running. And, that opens up doors to people who may not be in places where immersive theater is a really big thing. And maybe they'll discover this whole new universe of art through what we're doing, and go check out all the other cool stuff that's being done.
So as you get exposed to these new audiences, and I know that Next Time and Claus and Each and Every are pieces that you developed, maybe even some pre-quarantine, some stirrings, if memory serves. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm often wrong.
Yeah, Next Time was 2019, and the other 2 were were COVID pieces. Yeah,
I I did good. But so as you're getting exposed to these new audiences, do you find yourself not so much like interested in different subjects, but like, do you feel like it's changing how you approach some of the work?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the core will always be there. We started with storytelling. The first experience we ever did, that 5 month long alternate reality experience, was this kind of torn up and reassembled series of Twilight Zone interpretations of some of my favorite folktales. But you know I think definitely we find ourselves gearing a lot more toward what we call short form work, pieces that are 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 80 minutes, rather than the 3-day pieces that we started with. Last time we were on this podcast, we were talking about, if I think I'm remembering right, we were talking about Moonlight Serenade, which was a 3-day piece, and each day had, a series of encounters all making up a bigger story. Whereas now we're taking cues from specifically our film audience in creating pieces that are more self-contained, because one of the things that I think, and it seems like film audiences think makes the film genre so compelling, and I know that's a very strange and broad statement, but specifically horror movies or documentaries, is that they're telling a story much larger than the container that it's in. And we've always dealt in the imagination. I mean, we take away all your senses except for your hearing most of the time, so everything, we do most of the work in your head. I think film, in a way, in a different but equal, a very effective way, does that as well. Your average film is 90 minutes, but it
Right.
covers a story that's been, that ranges, way before the film begins and way after the credits roll.
There's if you got a really great filmmaker, and I mean, people can hear that and think like, oh, well, the Marvel universe, it connects all those like movies together. It's like, that's not what we're talking about. That's a soap opera. That's a TV series on the big screen. Sorry, everybody, but it is. I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoy them, but it's not this idea of, what you're talking about is, there's a world bigger than the story we're getting, and hopefully the 90 minutes or the 2 hours that we spend inside the world of the film, has some layers to it. It suggests the things that are just outside of the frame. It suggests, I think, particularly importantly, the interiority of the characters, which is something that, a visual medium paradoxically can have a lot of difficulty with. But the films that are great often avoid, the flatness of the frame and create a sense of depth. And that inevitably means that they're entering into the theater of the mind.
It really, what we want to focus on there, in each of the experiences we do, our goal is, it's not just participatory, it's not just interactive. We as in, it's not just what some people or some frames of thought consider interactive, where it's, you participate at moments and then sit back for other moments. Our goal is always, there's a story happening before, a story happening after, but this is the part of the story where you and the character or characters intersect, and you're a critical part of that. And then when your part in it is over, it's not like you're missing out on what happens after. It's your part in it is over. That's your story, from start to finish. We're not cutting you off early. We're concluding it. At least that's what we try to do.
Pandemic's been such a stressful time to do anything, but it seems like the craft you're honing is really flourishing. How's your, combined 2020, 2021 been? As I ask, as you march into, your busiest festival season ever. I think I know what the answer is going to be, but still, how's it
I
going?
mean, by the time the pandemic rolled around, we already knew that this kind of thing worked. The telephonic theater wasn't. I mean, we're always going to be an experimental theater company. That's what we call ourselves on our website, but it wasn't so much an experiment anymore. That's why we started experimenting with other things. A recent piece we did called Lovers Anonymous was involved video chat. And there was actually another piece for the Help series that Claus was a part of called On the Serenity of Oranges, which was similar in its sort of standalone format. It was a 50-ish minute piece, but it was all video. If anything, I think the pandemic expanded our options rather than limiting them in terms of remote work, because as we and everybody else kind of settled into the pandemic, it gave us the space to say, okay, we don't have to convince people to take a leap of faith and try this thing they've never tried before, try remote theater anymore. That was a big part of when we were first starting out in 2018 with our first ticketed piece. It was a question of, how do we sell something like this? It like nobody's doing it. How do we present this? We figured it out. And then with the pandemic, we didn't have to do that anymore. So we were kind of freed from having to try and define it as one thing to make it make sense, because it made sense. So then we got to expand, video and other multimedia, and briefly even exploring physical deliveries and things like that. And now as we kind of emerge, the pandemic isn't over by any means, but as we see the light at the end of the tunnel and we emerge out the other side, those options stick with us. And with all these festivals, I think the opportunity is only there to keep going.
As you look forward and past this festival season, what are you excited about exploring in the next crop of experiences?
We have a few different projects in the works, all of which are pretty sizable. There's one thing that kind of is a reach back to our traditional format, but aside from that, everything else is expanding in different directions. We have our Firestarter initiative, which the piece Lovers Anonymous that I mentioned was our pilot project for that, which is our incubator program that's slowly becoming our kind of educational side of things. How do you make remote theater? How do you that isn't just in person, an in-person concept shoehorned into a remote format? How do you create for a remote stage, so to speak? We have that going on. We have a few other projects that are huge departures from our traditional work, and I can't really say any more than that, but I'm really excited and I'm grateful for the time that we had to imagine and expand.
There's definitely some relief in knowing that despite how hard everything's been the past couple of years, that some good has come out of it in terms of people being able to explore and hone their voice, and to watch an artist like you and a company like yours be able to thrive in a trying time definitely helps sustain us. Like, watching that helps give us some faith that we're not crazy to be carrying on. So it's been good to see, Evan. It's been really good to see.
To misquote a phrase, desperation is the mother of invention, and we were desperate. I mean, we had figured out the form, but all of us who make up Candle House were, and we've grown since then, but in numbers, but at the time, all of us who made up Candle House were scared. I mean, life in a lot of ways obviously was, and this is a song that's been sung many times, but life for all of us was really unfamiliar. I had just come from a very, not like before the quarantine, I had just come from a very difficult point in my life health wise, and other people in the collective were also either coming from or entering really difficult times, and the work, which had been an experiment, became a refuge, which is why we created a series called Help, about a fictional helpline for life's inevitable everything else, was because that's what we all wished existed. I wish that there was a number in April, May, June, July of last year that I could have called that would have helped me with all the little tiny problems, because there was nothing I could do about the big ones, but we wanted to focus on the smaller things, which was different for us. Is focus on, it's always the end of the world somewhere, and thinking you have a monster in your closet, or trying to make music over Zoom, or getting a call from a fictional bureaucrat, friendly fictional bureaucrat, were just things that we wanted, and ways that we wish we could have replaced or adjusted our reality, and we couldn't, so we did it anyway.
I dig it. Evan, if folks want to follow along and catch up with what Candle House is doing next, what's the best way for them to do that?
So we're at candlehousecollective.com, and we're on Instagram at Candlehouse Collective. We suggest signing up for our mailing list. That's where we notify people about tickets first, and we post on Instagram shortly after. Because the work is one-on-one, tickets tend to go pretty quickly, so the mailing list is definitely your best bet.
All right. And we here at NoPro encourage you to do just that. Evan Neiden, thank you so much for being on the show this week.
Thanks, Noah.
How's that for an episode of No Proscenium? We got installation art in the Netherlands. We've got theme parks and virtual reality technology. We've got telephone-based theater experiences. And of course, a little more VR in the form of the pick of the week. We like to bring it all together here. We really do. That's also what we like to do when we do our gatherings, which the next stage in January is going to be something else we have going on. We have our friends from Room Escape Artist who've been on the show, and you've heard them a couple times. And they are, right now, I think they're just getting back from Montreal, where they were doing one of their escape room tours. So they do an event called Recon, which is a deep dive into the escape room universe. Brings a lot of folks from the business side and the creative side together. They are going to be doing that in person next year. They've done it online for the last 2 years because, of course, the reasons. Anyway, we're going to have like a little mini version of Recon. I think it's safe to say that, because David and Lisa and PG are going to all be at the next stage running our immersive gaming track. So we've got that going on for us. We've got Escape from Godot and Casting, which were originally planned for the 2020 festival. Those parts are going to be in, as we mentioned, Royal Shakespeare Company, folks from the Department Studios. We've got Assad from Jadu, so we're representing on the AR side of things. There's this growing list of folks who are going to be there. Obviously, we mentioned WDI earlier. I I mean, it's my own event, but I put together the event that I wish existed. And, we've done this a few times now, under different names and in different combinations. But I got to say, this is the one that I'm been most excited about. And of course, it's the one that the pandemic has kept us from doing. So badges are now on sale. They're available to everybody. It's not cheap, but that's because every dollar goes into making this the absolute best experience that we can. And I do mean that because we're cutting our own fees to the bone, just to make it happen, because we want to give you all an incredible chance to connect with folks from around the world. And indeed, we've got folks coming in from England. We've got some folks coming in from Singapore. There's more every day as folks are hearing the siren call of Pasadena, which really, if you're not from around LA, Pasadena's kind of nice, actually. It's one of our little secrets. So I hope to see you there January 7th, 8th, and 9th. Take the next step in your immersive career. Discover what exists in the disciplines you don't know about. Find your creative soulmate or your next team at the next stage. All right. I'm an awkward pitch man sometimes, I gotta admit, but I believe it. And I know it's going to be excellent. All right. I have taken up a lot of your weekend. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. Let's get into the credits. First, I need to thank our sustaining backers because they make everything we do possible. They are Ari Hurston, Brittany, Deborah Robinson, Elaine, Jay Bushman, Jerome Joseph Gentis, David Bassick, Lonnie Hanson, Paul Farnell, Mark Baltazar, Samuel Mustry, Sidney Guillory, and Jan Budman. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart. This show, while I'm the front man, takes a lot of people to keep us afloat. Parker Sella is our associate producer, and the schedule falls apart without her. The music for No Proscenium is by Chris Porter of the Speakeasy Society. You wouldn't know what you were listening to without that. No. I want to give special thanks to Siobhan O'Loughlin for voicing our intro. Catherine Yu is experiencing a well-earned vacation from her thesis events at USC this week, and she is the executive editor of NoPro, and she'll be back soon enough. And this podcast, of course, all the mistakes are mine, so I take all the blame and what credit you want to ascribe to me. That's it. We'll be back next week, and then the week after, it's going to be a bye week because I take my birthday week off like the teenager I am. So there you go. That's what's going on. We were originally thinking about maybe doing a special episode because Facebook Connect was going, but I am exhausted. So we'll have all of our impressions about Facebook Connect in the week after. Maybe there'll be a special thing. You will still get the review crew somehow. I'll probably break my vacation to do that. So there we go. Maybe we won't. Maybe we'll take the review crew off too. I'll decide next week. But until next time, I'll see you at the show.